The Bible says that God's eyes are on the city of Jerusalem every day and constantly. So God's timepiece, Israel, is clicking right on schedule.
There's a rumor afoot that the Jewish people, the Israelis, are planning to rebuild the temple, or at least there's a move among them that people want to rebuild the temple. Now, there is no temple, but there are people who want to rebuild the temple. So tell us about it.
Well, on June 7th in 1967, Israeli forces captured the city of Jerusalem in what was called the Six-Day War. After nearly 2,000 years of exile, the Jewish people were close to their dream of a new temple. But that dream lasted just a few days. The Temple Mount was later returned to Muslim authorities, and 4 decades later, Jews are still forbidden to worship there. But that hasn't stopped some people from making plans to build the next temple.
What's the significance of the Temple Mount to the Jewish people?
In Jewish tradition, this is where Adam was created. It was also the place after the flood that Noah brought an offering to the Lord. We know that this is the place where Abraham brought Isaac to be sacrificed. Also the place where David bought the threshing floor, where he said he wouldn't make an offering to God that cost him nothing. And it's the site of the first and second temples. It was believed by most also the place for the third temple where it will be built.
Are there any signs this temple is close to being rebuilt today? In our research in Israel, we discovered that the rebuilding of the Jewish temple is not just talk, but an extremely well-organized plan that is already being implemented by Jews in Israel today.
After 70 AD, the Jews were scattered throughout all of the world, and there came a time when Jews were not even allowed to live or visit Jerusalem. They've wanted, of course, to rebuild their temple, and thanks to the Temple Institute, which is just behind us, all the plans are already made. The sacrificial altar has been recently constructed. The priest robes have been made. Pretty much everything is ready to go.
Robert, help us understand, why is it so important to the Jewish religion to rebuild their temple? What is the significance of the temple to them?
Well, Chris, there's many important reasons, but the primary reason, the number one reason, is the Jewish people do not believe their Messiah will arrive until that temple is rebuilt.
So what preparations are actually being made right now to build the third temple?
There are actually quite a few, and it just shows that God is giving the Jewish people kind of signs or an expectation that it's time for the soon coming Messiah. But there is a group specifically that has reestablished the Levitical priesthood. They just started a school a few months ago, and they have a registry for those who are from the Levitical line that they could come and be trained and be ready to do the service in the temple. They've also started a red heifer farm. The Temple Institute did with an Israeli farmer, and that was again with ritual purity, that they need to have a red heifer that meets Jewish law and has been supervised and doesn't have any white hairs. It's completely red heifer to be able to be burned, mixed with running water, and then used to make everybody ritually pure to be able to go into the temple.
And we're overlooking the Temple Mount with the golden dome of the rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. What's the significance of the Temple Mount to Muslims?
For Muslims, it's the third holiest site in their religion, but interestingly enough, it's not the Dome of the Rock, which is the most prominent site, it's the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
The Temple Mount is the site of the first and second Jewish temples, but for hundreds of years it's been occupied by Muslim shrines. The Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Golden Dome of the Rock now sit on the site. But some Jewish people want to build a third Jewish temple.
It's such a holy site to so many people. Why is it so controversial?
I think that's the exact purpose, because it's so holy. And all the monotheistic religions, Christian, Jews, and Muslims, all feel like this is their place of worship. And so it's very controversial of who's going to actually end up on this mount.
Do you think the three religions could share the Temple Mount?
Personally, I don't, but there is a huge movement about coexisting on the Temple Mount. And even recently, within the last 2 weeks, I know of a meeting between Christians and Muslims and Jews who all are talking about what are the possibilities and how could they establish both a temple and a mosque on the Temple Mount.
What kind of plans are being made to build a third temple?
There are actually quite a few, and depending on the group that you talk to, different architectural designs have been made. So one group is doing a design more like Herod's temple, And it would be on the Temple Mount, and I don't believe that they would have a mosque that would be there. There are other groups that are more focused on the design that's given in Ezekiel, chapters 40 through 48, which is the next structure in Scripture that God said to build the temple in this way.
How is it going to be conducted on the same location where the Mount Sharif is?
There's only one place that it can be done in the whole world, and that is the place of the Temple Mount. That's why it's called the Temple Mount. And of course, that's where it's going to be.
So how is it going to happen?
How is it going to happen? Yeah. That we're going to leave part of it up to God, but I can tell you clearly that the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
This place has been a holy place since the beginning of the world and is in essence the center of the world. And we believe that the rock inside of the Dome of the Rock, which is called in Hebrew the Evan HaShatiyah, which in English means the foundation stone, is the foundation stone of the world. That is the place from which God spread out the earth. Right now it's in the hands of the Arabs. We want to change that status to return the temple to its glory, rebuild the temple, restore the sacrificial service.
I believe that there will be a temple built. The Dome of the Rock will somehow be done away with. I have no idea. There's been plenty of earthquakes up there that could solve it. Saddam could, or not Saddam, but maybe someone from Iran could shoot a missile that gets off target and blow the Dome of the Rock. We kept hoping for that, by the way. I kept hoping one of Saddam's missiles would find its way over to the dome.
I don't know exactly how it's going to be removed, but it is not part of the end times as far as the Bible or Christianity is concerned. I don't think Judaism either. There's no place for that mosque. It has to be removed.
For the first time since the past 2,000 years within our generation, we are seeing these preparations for the rebuilding of the temple. They are training the priest. They have the implements in place.
There will be a daily offering in the morning, a daily offering in the afternoon, special offerings on the Sabbath and holidays. The Passover sacrifice, all of those will be brought again, and the future temple will stand forever.
והם לא צריכים להידחף איפה שאנחנו צריכים. מה שקדוש לנו, לדחוף את ה... לא משנה. ככה, כי זה מקום שלנו. כן, זה לא מגיע אליהם, הם מגיעים. אני לא אכפת לי, תשלחו לאנשהו מקום אחר. כן, זה לא קדוש להם, הם מחפשים סתם להפסיק לנו. מחפשים לעצר לנו. כל מקום שקדוש לנו, הם בונים מסגד. אבל יש תוכנית לעשות את זה? לא, התוכנית הוא לא. לך יש? אתה כותב ו... אני לא אדבר על זה, אבל בוא נגיד שיש... בינתיים אבל בכל...
Israel does what Israel needs to do.
During the tribulation, a Jewish temple will be standing on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. But as you know, there's not one standing there today. Rather, you have the Muslim Dome of the Rock standing there. When will the Jewish temple be rebuilt? How will it be done if the dome is still there? What would you say if I told you that there are plans and preparations underway right now to rebuild the temple in our lifetime?
And it's going to be standing there. They restore the temple sacrifices and everything else. There is one problem though, John. Everything has been prepared. They have the utensils. They have the men who've studied the priestly duties. I met recently when I was in Israel with the man who is the chairman of the Sanhedrin, the 70 wise Jewish scholars that operate the temple.
God in a nutshell has, now let's call it a friendship, a direct line of communication with the Sanhedrin, a friendship with the Sanhedrin in Israel. This is the top of all of the rabbis. These are the very men that will put in that temple on the back of that coin with Trump on the cover of it. These are the men that will organize the building of that temple. The Sanhedrin will organize that.
He said he has his garment hanging in his closet, in his home, ready to put on and report to the Temple Mount. So all the preparations have been made. There's one problem. That gold dome building, the Dome of the Rock, sits on the spot where the temple has to be erected there on the Temple Mount. And I've got to tell you, during the Gulf crisis, when I first moved to Jerusalem, we would hear the siren warning of an incoming Scud. Most of us ran into our sealed room, put on our gas mask. The Jews living in the Jewish quarter in the old city of Jerusalem ran to the Temple Mount, started to pray, "Dear God, let one of those Scuds hit the Dome of the Rock." Of course, Scud is an acronym for sure could use direction, because Saddam didn't know where they were going. But I believe that's what's going to happen. In that battle at the beginning of the tribulation period, when these nations are attacking Israel, one of their missiles is going to take down the Dome of the Rock. They put the temple up. I mean, I could just go for the next hour or two about the personalities who believe it's about to be put up. One of my dear friends, an Orthodox Jewish man named Gershon Solomon, he has the cornerstones to put on the Temple Mount to start construction of all that God said will happen during the tribulation period. All the preparations, every player I've talked with, I know I love them, and they're ready to put the temple up.
All the bullying over the years, all the anti-Israel stuff, all of it is all part of a larger globalist UN, Sorosian program, and the Vatican is heavily involved, and they want the UN to come in and take over that holy city. Talk about bringing in revelation. You know, maybe I just don't want revelation to come in that quick. I got a 1-year-old daughter. I got 3 other children I love. Maybe I just don't like seeing it fulfilled, to have the Babylon whore and the false prophet in control of Jerusalem. Maybe just at a deep level, I don't like the UN taking control of Israel. Because that's the thing. That's who's going to take it over. And then they're going to start even bigger wars. You'll never satisfy the so-called Palestinians. The Arab countries won't take one of them. What does that tell you? Because everywhere you take them in, they try to overthrow you. It's what they do. And you know what they do to holy sites? They blow each other's holy sites up. So you let unfettered Islamic takeover happen in Jerusalem, guaranteed within 1 year, Dome of the Rock, all of it is going to get blown sky high. Because that's especially what the Wahhabis do.
David Friedman was presented with a photograph of one of the most sacred places in Jerusalem. But the image had been altered to show the Jewish third temple on the site where the Islamic Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock are currently situated. The third temple is a biblical reference to a new place of worship to replace an ancient one which was destroyed. The US embassies asked for an apology, saying the envoy was unaware that he was being given a doctored picture. The region is still reeling from deadly protests against the relocation of the embassy to Jerusalem.
We are in the final days. I believe you're going to hear more talk about the great temple being built in Israel. Do you believe that at all? I didn't ask you ahead of time, so maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly, and there's a push for that. And did you notice that one of the very first things when Trump was elected, the rabbis in Israel calling on him and Putin to use their international clout to do what? To rebuild the temple. Don't think this can't happen. I think impetus is on our side right now. I think we're moving towards a moment. And the rabbis over there, some of what the mystical rabbis are saying is very, very curious right now.
הכנראה שאם מספיק, כאילו שהיום כבר כמה שעות בגלל ועדיין ליבו, אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום.
Every day, 3 times a day, Jews recite this prayer. May it be your will that the temple be speedily rebuilt in our own time. It's a prayer they prayed for almost 2,000 years.
But Jews here in Jerusalem are doing more than just praying. Just a few steps away from the Western Wall, rabbis and craftsmen are building what they call a temple in waiting.
We're supposed to build a temple, and nothing about that changed. Nothing about that commandment changed.
Chaim Richman is a director at the Temple Institute in Jerusalem.
The Temple Institute is actively engaged in research and preparation for the resumption of the service in the Holy Temple, to the extent of actually preparing operational blueprints for the construction of the temple according to the most modern standards.
This menorah is just one of several vessels created for the next temple. It's covered with 95 pounds of pure gold and has a price tag of $2 million.
Piece by piece, the third temple is taking shape, with priest garments, vessels of copper, gold, and silver, and a new generation of Levite priests, specially trained for temple service.
The expression lost ark is not at all accurate for the Jewish people historically, because we never said that it was lost. although it was hidden very well, there have always been those that have known exactly where it is. And historically, when King Solomon, who after all, as the Bible tells us, was the wisest of all men, when he oversaw the construction of the first temple, knowing with prophetic enlightenment that eventually it would be destroyed, he oversaw underneath the Temple Mount complex the construction of a very vast system of all sorts of corridors and mazes and chambers. And one of these chambers was built especially for the time when it would be necessary to hide the Ark of the Covenant, as well as some other items that I mentioned this morning. And we know exactly where that chamber is, and we believe that when the time comes, those items will be restored to the newly built temple. We have enough in place now to resume the divine service and to build the temple. But obviously, a lot of things have to happen in order for this to happen.
Richmond isn't the only one who's ready to rebuild.
You actually have blueprints, architectural drawings for the third temple?
3,000 years after King Solomon built the first Jewish temple, another Solomon is laying the foundations for the third.
From the womb of my mother, I have a task and a mission in my life, which is connected with the rebirth of Israel.
Gershon Solomon leads a group called the Temple Mount Faithful. They commissioned these cornerstones for the third temple. The 6-ton stones were consecrated with water from the biblical pool of Siloam and cut with diamonds.
Trump upset victory divinely sent to begin messianic process, say Israeli rabbis, right?
Before the 2016 presidential election, some evangelical Christians began comparing Donald Trump to King Cyrus, the biblical king who's credited with allowing Jews to return to Jerusalem from exile in the Babylonian Empire. The idea behind the comparison is that a non-believing leader can be used by God to enact policies that help advance the interest of believers, in this case, Christians and Jews.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
Donald Trump recognized history. He, like King Cyrus before him, fulfilled the biblical prophecy of the gods worshipped by Jews, Christians, and yes, Muslims, that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the Jewish state.
I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
I think President Trump has made history. This will be remembered the way we remember the Cyrus Declaration from 2,500 years ago when he told the exiles of Babylon, you can go back and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. This is a historic moment, and we will always remember it.
That is a Trump Cyrus coin. That's what that is in my hand. This is a third temple. That's what the image is that is on the back of this coin. And you have Trump and Cyrus. A lot of people said these coins were actually a conspiracy. These didn't even exist. These are literal coins minted in Israel. This is a half shekel. It contains, I believe, 10 grams of silver, which is by the book. By the book, what that would be by Levitical law, what this coin would need to contain. This is what you would pay as the temple tax. It would be a half shekel.
It was minted by the Institute for Knowledge of the Temple, and it has a picture of King Cyrus in the background, who was very influential in the rebuilding of the temple, the second temple. It has President Trump in the foreground, and on the back it has a picture of the temple itself. We hope that the declarations of both Cyrus and Trump will lead to the rebuilding of the third temple.
When is the building?
Very soon. We've already started.
Yeah?
Yes.
And when it's due to be completed?
That depends on how fast the workers work and how quickly we can collect the money from the treasury.
President Trump is starting a prophetic process by moving the American embassy to Jerusalem. Just like King Cyrus 2,500 years ago said, he charged me to build a house in Jerusalem. Here again, President Trump is building a house in Jerusalem.
Donald Trump sent Iranians who are the descendants of Persia a message to reflect on their own history, and that it was the king of Persia who 1,000 years before Muhammad was even born, that said Jerusalem was the capital of the Jewish people's country.
We are very happy to announce that the Mikdash Educational Center just produced a new Cyrus Trump temple coin. This special coin was produced and minted for the 70 years of the independence of the State of Israel, and to honor and praise President Donald Trump, who promised, but not only promised, also fulfilled this promise. And next week, we'll move the American embassy to Jerusalem.
Do you really consider the embassy move as just one step in the direction of building the temple?
It's a huge step. It's not just a step. It's a huge step because it is a step that is bringing together the biblical narrative, the narrative of Esav and Yaakov. The two brothers that were split thousands of years ago are now being brought together again, and this is all part of the biblical narrative. We believe that this is a huge step to the recognition of Jerusalem, of Israel, and the rebuilding of our third temple.